Hello and welcome to the New York Empire podcast. I am Dan Hilton and he's Matt Pippin Auletta. And while the UFA playoffs are still going on, the New York Empire season has ended, and we unfortunately have the very, very difficult task of talking about it. So we're going to dive right in, Matt. This is the finale for us. This is the finale for the Empire season. So we're diving right into the final game of the year. And while this is going to be more of a eulogy for the whole season, we do have to talk about how that all transpired. So we're going to start with the hard truth, a 23-12 shellacking from DC in the East Division semis. First playoff win against the Empire for the Breeze since 2016. Now, you've been on the receiving end of some of those blowouts, including New York's first loss by double digits since July the 14th of 2018, when the Empire were crushed by the Breeze that day, 29-19, exactly 11 years before Saturday's 11-goal loss, which is just weird, something in the wind there. And then a 31-16. I mean, that was gross. I don't even know. I don't have a noun for that one. 31-16. Y'all lost against Toronto at championship weekend on July 26th, 2014. That was the last time that the Empire were beaten by more than 10 goals. Now, I end with that because I end with the compliment that to not lose by more than 10 goals since 2014 in 11 years, that's pretty gosh darn good. It says a lot about the program that has been built for a long time. And I don't assume that with this double-digit loss, they're going in any different downward direction. But I do think that this is one of those ones where this game got completely away from them. Jack had said the heat was the biggest issue with mounting a comeback. But you've also been emotionally on the receiving end of some of those blowouts. Like you were there in 2014. What can a team do to reverse course? Okay, maybe you missed it for some. Okay,
I got you. Don't worry, I got you. Here we go. Yeah, I'm ready.
But what can a team do? I mean, what can a team do to reverse course in those situations? And I mean, did you have any flashbacks of the Empire 10 or 11 years ago while this was happening?
No. So first, I was there for the DC game in July. They beat us pretty soundly. I think that was a Tyler DiGirolamo and Alex Thorne, one of the Thorne brothers. They kind of dismantled us. We just didn't play that great. Whatever. We adjusted, though. I want this to be known, and then we got them good the next time we played them. Some inside info from Isaac Saul, since he had played with Thorne and DiGirolamo in college, and we just kind of gelled together. Everybody played well. We got them good. The Toronto loss, I was not in attendance. I did not have a passport in 2014. My teammates were not happy about that. Management was not happy about that. I was at Wildwood. And before we talk about this playoff game, I will just say one thing. I was at Wildwood again this past weekend. I love it. It's great, good times. I did find out that we have fans. I didn't, I knew some people listened to this, but people recognized me, and a few people stopped me and said some nice things. So to anybody who actually said something to me, I found that pretty cool. One person who was not a fan, but clearly a listener, Mike Campanella from the Philadelphia Phoenix, he told me I was an Empire shill and that I was a company man. So we got a good laugh out of that. Yeah, so people listen. Campy, shout out to you. I appreciate the hate. I appreciate the hate. It fuels me. So yeah, good on you. But yeah, so
next year when Campy plays every game and isn't dealing with injury stuff, then I have so much effusive praise for Campy when he returns to the lineup. But I say his Phoenix kind of needed him at times this season.
100%. They 100% needed him. Yeah. I like him as a person and as a player. So hopefully he can return in healthy capacity for a full year next year. Maybe that's what the Hotbirds need.
Yeah, I mean, I can say, too, that you're hearing it. The minute you brought up detractors, I mean, that's when my puppy absolutely lost his mind. Because he is also not very happy about, again, not only 10-goal losses, but you and I being accused of being company shills and things like that.
Yeah. No, and don't worry, Campy and everybody else. I'm going to let the Empire have it a little bit here. It wasn't great. So back to the task at hand, the sad task.
We have to talk about the way it all happened. So, to me, this conversation, I think, begins and ends, like, not to take anything away from the struggle the Empire had, right? Because we can talk about the issues that the Empire had. But there was one difference in that game that didn't exist in even the first game at DC in that loss, when they lost by 8, and then they won the double overtime. Christian Boxley was unavailable for those two games. And Christian Boxley was awesome. Now, I did not think that Christian Boxley, because offensively, he's as scary a player as it possibly can be in a 3v3 box, but he decided to take on, ask his coaching staff, ask Lauren Doyle and company to take on the John Randolph matchup. And there was a lot of switching with Jesper Tom because very much like the game that the Empire won, it was a lot of, hey, can we get Tom into the deep space and victimize him there? Unfortunately, those hucks this time around were short. And Jesper Tom, at the peak of his power, was able to get those. But everything on unders, everything in short field, it was Christian Boxley on John Randolph. And with Christian Boxley is going to play both sides of the disc, which we could see more of that in the future with a lot of different players. But if Boxley is going to play both sides of the disc, I mean, DC, to me, because of that one factor, become my championship weekend favorite. Because Christian Boxley, I think, has the potential to show everybody he's the best both sides of the disc player in Ultimate right now.
That's high praise. It's hard to argue what we just watched.
But you have to give me another one. If you think
No,
if you
no,
got a
no.
double,
Yeah, I based on that performance, nothing was really jumping off the page, right? I mean, maybe, yeah, I don't know. That whole DC Breeze D line, just credit to them. They looked awesome out there. They looked like they wanted it, and I'm not trying to make any excuses. I do think early in the game there were like one or two no calls that maybe those D's were like kind of fouls, like little bumps, and those little bumps, they don't look like a lot when you watch them, but it looked like it sent some of the Empire players just like that, like off kilter a little bit, and that resulted in like some weird drops, like one or two. And you got to play through that. That happens sometimes. Sometimes the refs do not call that stuff. Maybe they could have gotten those calls, and maybe the game would have stayed a little closer, a little longer. But it was the response to that that was really just lackluster. I mean, they couldn't take the disc back. They were anemic. Everything. I don't know where you want to start breaking it down. I don't think the Empire defensive game plan was very good. Offensively, they looked lackluster. It just
yeah. Let's start with offense. I think because you're right. I think with every breath that we take here, this was the duality, and not to be philosophical, duality of man, but this was every time I can say this was an issue with the Empire, I have to give a compliment to DC, and both things can be true at the same time, right? Things can be two
100%.
things. That's right. And I think AJ Merriman, to throw out more names, was absolutely fantastic in this match. Helping to QB that D line, 100% completions. He had 2 goals, 3 assists, 1 block, and it was a D line that broke on its first 12 attempts.
Yeah, which is unreal, like absolutely unreal. Yeah. AJ Merriman and that D line looked like they were ready to just like sling it out to space and run and have fun because nothing was not working. They just could do whatever they wanted, and it looked super fun. I'm sure that was a fun spectacle for the home fans.
Yeah, and I would say on the inverse of that the Empire, I said my key was the Empire's offense's ability to get the disc back, and that didn't happen. That was a worst case scenario, did not happen. It did not help, though, that the Empire offense is also giving the disc away way easier than they had in 2.5 months. 20 turnovers, at some point, some of those are self-inflicted by the offense. Chartok and Cowan had their worst games as pros. I can't think of a time when either of them struggled the way that they did. Yacht was also, wouldn't say it was a bad game for him, but he was held to the most pedestrian numbers he's ever had. Kevin Healy got a run-through block on him, and in terms of goals, it was the 7th time ever for Ben Yacht in his 132-game Hall of Fame journey where among those 7 games where he did not bring in a goal. That is just incredible. And Saturday was the first time ever that Yacht finished with no goals, no assists, and no blocks. The first time ever in his career that he has put up a 0-0-0 in 132 games. That just tells you that, I mean, when you hear that, do you think, is that the scheme that DC went with? Is that was just, I mean, again, the heat, like there are just so many factors that have to go into that to keep somebody that good, that quiet.
So I actually spent a good amount of the time watching where he was moving away from the disc because he was so uninvolved at times. And he made a few good cuts, but every time he started moving into a space that looked fine, like a normal under he would normally get, either there was like a mark shifting or somebody else was kind of in the way. So that kind of thwarted what I thought were the good things he was doing, where he was open and you could have thrown to him half a second earlier, and then like it just didn't happen for whatever reason. The throwers in the middle of a pivot or something, just like the timing was off, and that wasn't necessarily his fault. That just happens sometimes, right? Those were fine cuts. And then other times it just looked like he couldn't gain the separation he wanted from some of those defenders. And I don't know, I have no idea if that was because it's hot or because he was tired or because they were smothering him or, they just said, hey, let's play as close to him as possible. And if he beats you deep, one way or the other, so be it. But, you know, the camera was also a little too close where I couldn't tell when he cut in sometimes and he didn't get thrown to. I can't tell if he took off really hard deep and was open and didn't get thrown to, or if he just cleared and didn't make like a super aggressive cut deep, which maybe would have helped either free up space or go score some goals. So, I can only speak to what I could see in what was filmed. And yeah, sometimes he made fine cuts. They just didn't get thrown to. And then other times he just like was kind of blanketed. So I don't know. I mean, do I expect him to play like that again? Not really, but those DC defenders were ready for that.
Well, I also think over the course of a game, when things get tighter and tighter like that, they're down 8-2 in the first. That's what happens. Or even if you make those outcuts, you're obviously on the sideline saying, "Hey, we can work it up. We can do this. We can just." Yes, we take what we're given, but in that same way, I think you get a little more hesitant on putting those hucks up early and things like that. Like you're just trying to work your way with your legs. I mean, you say it all the time when, rest in peace, my long on ultimate league careers, but like when you would say it, you win with your legs, and you have to win with your legs. I mean, not just you. I think a lot of smart people in ultimate
I
say
do
that.
yell
But
it.
yeah, you
I
have to.
do yell it a lot, though. It is one thing I
That's
like
I think that's
saying
if I
when
see you to
people look a little
catchphrase.
sluggish.
I think if you had a catchphrase, that would be it. Win with your legs. And so I think the Empire were consistently attempting to win with their legs, but it just wasn't happening. And then on the other side of stuff, talking defensively, sometimes you get your defensive scheme wrong, and that's what happened.
Yeah, it looked like, especially early on, the team Empire just was kind of letting DC play small ball. There didn't seem to be that like crazy aggressive tight handler pressure I expected. You kind of want to force them downfield. Are they capable of hucking and playing like a mid-range game? Yes, absolutely. But is that what they want to do as like their very first option? No. This team wants to complete 700 passes and just do their own thing like little wizards around the disc and then, work it in eventually. And they kind of let them do that. And they were getting like some big free arounds with no pressure. There was just yeah, they needed some handler pressure. They needed to just deny some of those unders a little bit more, like those mid-range space throws. But no, it just looked like four or five people were always kind of available within like 15 yards, and they always hit somebody. I mean, the game plan didn't really seem to mesh with what you would want to try and take away either. So now we're talking offense looks bad and defense looks bad.
Yeah, and that's how the score ended up being the way it was.
Yeah.
The DC all line wasn't broken until 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and only 3 turns in the first 3 quarters in totality. So as I said, every time you go, well, yes, the Empire, they got their scheme wrong. And I'm a big basketball fan, and you watch in the playoffs, especially when you know each other so well, you know the personnel, you feel like you know inside and out, and then one team takes a chance, goes with a certain defensive scheme, and they get it wrong. And when you get it wrong, and as you said, and the O line is struggling, that number, as in the blowout, that's what happens. And DC, to their credit, as I said, every time we say there's an issue with the Empire, to DC's credit, they did not make mistakes. Because on the times where the DC Breeze offense had to go deep or they were being forced out, they were 10 of 12 on their hucks. They were just good. DC completed 355 of their 362 passes, 98% completion rate. That was the second cleanest offensive game in UFA playoff history, trailing only again, the night that we covered, 2023 East Division Final, when New York had just 4 total turnovers, which I think as time goes on, again, we will continue to say as Ultimate does get cleaner and cleaner, sure, we might see more and more low turnover games, but I mean, that night was just, you saw and you knew that something special was happening with the way that everything was just clicking and vibing in all those best ways. I don't have much else to say about this game unless you want to put a final note on it.
I have a little bit, yeah. As somebody who played and has done some coaching and just now as like spectator, it was really frustrating to watch that O line for Empire go out over and over
Yeah.
and over and over. And I'm sorry, I could say it 17 more times. Like, I don't understand what the thought process was there. They were playing poorly. They were getting bad throwaways. They were getting bad drops. They were getting bad short, not even just throwaways like, oh, our deep game's not working. No, it was like bad short field throws behind people. It was bad hucks. It was everything. and then to just keep running those same players out there over and over and over, that was madness. Like I I just can't imagine getting broken that many times or looking that bad and then not instituting some changes. And I understand that to win that game, you're going to need your O line to play well at some point, but give them a point or two off and let that D line go play. Like you have to let your D line come out on offense, or even just some mix of people with like lean heavily into the D line. I mean, Antoine Davis used to play mostly offense, and sure, his career completion percentage is not amazing, but his completion percentage this year is top notch. He's been playing great. He's a great athlete. He's a good thrower. He's a great receiver. Like you have Marquez Brownlee, who's on this World Games team. Like you don't think he could go out and play offense for a little bit? I mean, you had Everett Shapiro was on your O line for a bit. Like you have Max Shepard just languishing there again. Like you could have done anything to mix this game up way earlier than they did and try and salvage it. And it had a similar vibe to when Empire were just beating down on Philly, and head coach of the Phoenix, Dave Brandoff, just gave like a halftime speech talking about next year. It felt like that, like early in the beginning of the second quarter. It almost felt like Empire was just like going through the motions like that early. And it's, for how good the program is and truly how good this team still could have been. I mean, this was a horrible game, but like they're still a good team. Like it was just disappointing to not watch any adjustments take place until like the game was already done and dusted.
Hey Empire fans, ShopEmpireUltimate.com is your home for all the latest Empire gear. From hats to hoodies to discs and coaching, ShopEmpireUltimate.com is the best place to get yourself ready for the next Empire game.
Hola Empire aficionados, ShopEmpireUltimate.com es tu casa para todo lo nuevo de Empire, desde cachuchas a sudaderas a frisbees y entrenadores. ShopEmpireUltimate.com es el lugar para que te alistes para el siguiente juego de Empire.
Yeah, I did find myself in the first half even feeling and thinking about this season as a whole and saying, well, I don't know who the Empire were this season. Were they the team that was finding themselves and injured for the first half of the season? Were they the team that won all 5 home games and went into the playoffs on the high that they did? Were they the team that lost to the Breeze in the way that they did? Well, obviously not. That's not obviously defining a season, but Jack Williams had a quote that he said to Evan Lepler for Tuesday Toss. I'm interested to see if we change up our strategy next season to put out our D-line earlier after we get broken.
There we go. I hadn't read that yet. Yeah.
Yeah, in the past, we were able to get away with it, but we may need to rethink that. I do, obviously, because we give ourselves fake awards. I do like to give you something to make you feel good, make you feel like you've done your homework and you're talking about. So yeah, Jack agreed with that. Rethinking how quick to put the D-line on, but that's again looking ahead to next season. But this season, yeah, it was an odd Empire season where we go back to 2017, the last time they missed the playoffs, and that was the last season that players admit, like, this is kind of weird, it's kind of funky. And this season, they still have the talent to make the playoffs, and they still made the playoffs. But I think I'm going to come away from this season going, there was that championship, as much as they had won all 5 at home, and as much as they were going into that playoff game with a 4-game win streak, and if they had won the championship, we saw the path. But now in hindsight, you go, okay, I can see how this year that team was not exactly in that top tier 1 championship caliber team. Like it was going to always be very difficult for this version of the Empire for a lot of reasons. Again, Calvin Brown with the ACL, the continuity at times with the O-line, the fact that some of their pieces were fresh pieces and incorporating, 4 years from now, who knows where Jacob Cowan is going to be on the O-line. But we might go, hey, this was that year where the Empire did bring in a lot of new talent. And one thing that I think you and I have understated all year that being the team has really been saying a lot of is that it is a different vibe. It was a different culture this season. They had to do a culture change. And I think it's not that this culture was bad, but this is year 1 of this new culture change on that sideline. So I think that is something that all the players now buying into and understanding. So now you could say next year is the building on this year, as opposed to last season where you dropped that game against Boston in the playoffs. But it felt like last year was still a recovery year from all the changes that happened literally during training camp. Literally during the preseason, you lose 2 MVPs in Ryan Oscar and Jeff Babbitt. And last season did feel like a whole year of being punched in the mouth and recovering from that. This season did feel like year one of this is what we're building, this is what we're doing to be, this is how we're changing the culture. And now next season, the real test is going to be trying to build on that. And I think that's the thing about the Empire. If they can use these two seasons and say, all right, last season was the recovery season, this season was year one of this new project, and they're back in the playoff, like not playoff, but championship picture next year, the year after, this will all make sense.
Yeah. Just one more thing about the bodies who are missing. I mean, you mentioned there Calvin Brown was out. I mean, that would have helped a bunch. Obviously, one person's not going to make a huge difference, but he kind of had just like this pep in his step and kind of made the offense just function at a totally different level. And, that alone could have made a big difference. And then on the defensive side, no Oliver Fay. I mean, he had been having great games when he was available. And, maybe just more pressure on one of their best cutters would have made a big difference. I mean, that's a big body, and it just down the chain, everybody gets a slightly different or better, more advantageous matchup. Again, do I think those two humans alone are overcoming that difference if the rest of the team still plays the same? No, absolutely not. But, sometimes those minor tweaks that don't seem that big, that goes from a massive blowout to like a 2-point game or something, and you never know. So not having them was also probably a bigger deal than a lot of people would think initially.
Right. I mean, and I think for DC, on the inverse of that, they said, hey, we did last season without Christian Boxley, and we still a championship favorite. So one player does not a team make. But yeah, you're right that they built something, and especially on that offense for Calvin Brown, like he absorbed so many turnovers. And if you ever talk to that guy, he's when I say cool as a cucumber, like this is an igloo. He has got a igloo full of cucumbers. That is how cool Calvin Brown is. Like there is no turnover that he's ever remembered or thinks about or whatever. And the fact that he can absorb that for everybody else, I think you could see in the body language that the turnovers were adding up and they were weighing on players. And when you have a player like Calvin Brown to say, all right, Calvin, with your big arm, get us out of trouble a few times and get some easy scores. I mean, the Empire really only had 3 easy scores in that whole game to kind of take that pressure off and take a breath. And it just wasn't happening. They had to fight for everything and grind for everything. And you see, as I said, it's so weird because I'm going to transition this into the superlatives for the season. My team MVP this year, I'm going to go first here, it's John Randolph. And I said, John Randolph, his worst game of the season was the last game of the season when Christian Boxley gave him all he could possibly handle. And it was almost hard to watch from home because you're watching John Randolph work as hard as he did. And I'm thinking, I'm putting myself in John's shoes. I'm like, if you put me in John Randolph's cleats, let me see what I didn't write down John's numbers for the game. It's okay. We don't need to know. But if I had written down John's numbers, all I know is mine were going to be 0-0-0 across the board.
I actually had it up. John Randolph, 1 assist, 2 goals, 255 yards.
Total. Yeah, I said I would have had 0. That's what I know. I mean, I don't think I would have touched the disc once, like in John Randolph's cleats. But to see John Randolph have to fight that hard for less than 260 yards just tells you how overwhelming that DC pressure was. But yet, that doesn't stop me from having him my team MVP. I don't even know how you can make an argument then. He was a plus 66, 30 goals, 40 assists, 6 blocks. And when he moved from the D-line to the O-line, this year he played 90 defensive points, 218 O points, and it was just a difference. He also led the team with 30 hockey assists, also only had 10 turnovers. So that is I'm good at this math. Yeah, that's a 4-to-1. Yeah, I'd say 40 assists, 10 turnovers. Thank goodness for easy math. That's a 4-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. And that's good enough to get it done. He also had 11 hucks. He hit 73% of those. So John Randolph statistically, but also, I said, we saw the games. We saw the vibes. Like John Randolph was what made everything work, both defensively to start the season and then offensively when he moved over.
100%. I don't have anything else to add to that. He was the engine the team needed. He was the difference maker for the whole season. Maybe if Calvin Brown was around all season, he would have maybe contended for it a little bit. But for how it all shook out, it's John Randolph, and it wasn't even particularly close.
All right, I'll give you an easy one now here. Best win of the season. There is obviously only one option, so go ahead.
To win against Vegas, right? You put them in their place? No.
I mean, they made history. It was Vegas' first game. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
It was the win against Boston. I'm sorry, against DC to keep it going. Yeah,
the 1918 double overtime win. I mean, that was the difference. It brought them back to 500.
Yeah.
And that's the reason they even made the playoffs. All right, this one's a little more difficult here. Most underrated player of the season. So the player that we're really not talking about how good his season actually was and how positive we can be about how good of a season this player had.
Underrated. Underrated.
I think I have my answer. I have my answer, but you're not going to like it.
Oh, interesting. We didn't talk about him a ton, and especially not in a positive light to start. Max Shepard had like a decent statistical season, considering he played mostly D points and not that many points.
Yeah.
I also didn't hate the work Ben Simmons was doing. The numbers don't jump off the page, but decent. I don't know. What do you got here?
Yeah. So my three candidates for underrated is, believe it or not, Ben Yot. Like for the 2 times that we were like, oh yeah, Ben Yot this year, he ended the season with the second most receiving yards in the whole league and was 3rd in goals in the entire league. He had 45 goals this season, 18 assists, and 9 blocks. Like Ben Yot had statistically one of the best seasons of his career. And because he had 2.5 poor games, I don't want to revise the story of his season. Like with a younger team, he was the veteran. He was the guy that you needed to help carry that team in practices and in games, emotionally being the constant. And that's a sentence I never thought I would say, but just the emotional constant that Ben Yot was for a young team and how he was a release valve for a young team and an offense that was figuring themselves out. And he was always in the end zone, and he did it on unders. He did it on outs. And Ben Yot, I just want to make sure that I think next season or the year after, whatever it is, like it's not that he's going to be blamed for this, but because we're going to say John Randolph was the MVP of the Empire season, I think Ben Yot's really, really, really great season is going to be forgotten. Like this game alone is why he won't be named to the all UFA teams, but I think he should still be in the conversation to get one of those, 15 or 16 spots on an all UFA team. That's how good his season was. So it sounds weird to call Ben Yot underrated, but I do almost think that we're going to wind up focusing more on the negative as opposed to all the positivity this year getting lost. I will also say Matt LeBar is not a nationally spoken about player, but he ended the year with 35 goals, 27 assists, and 5 blocks. And it was rough in the first 4 or 5 games, but when they were good, he was really good. Like that Toronto game was an all-time individual game by an individual player for the Empire. And then Axel Agame-Contreras was my other guy. He led the D-line with plus minus, with 16 goals, 7 assists, 4 points, a plus 24. And Sam Jonas was a plus 23 with 3 goals, 9 assists. And I didn't even realize this. He had 14 blocks this year, 5 more than the nearest block getter in Oliver Fay. So we talk about Oliver Fay being like, we have another best defender category. Do you want to do that right now? It was Oliver Fay. But Oliver Fay's 9 blocks, it was 5 less even than Sam Jonas. And Sam Jonas was attacked by handlers. He was attacked by outcutters. Like he was getting basically most athletic matchup on D2. And then when the offense needed him, sometimes he'd play 0 points, and sometimes he would jump over to that first D line or whatever it was and take care of business too. Like Sam Jonas, very, very underrated. We said it last season, and I think we continue to say it this season because he did have a better sophomore year than he even had a rookie year last year. So I want to make sure that also gets spoken about before we wrap this up.
Yeah. I think I was going to give him a shout out as probably the best defender, even if Oliver Fay might have had tougher matchups and made some better plays, but the numbers are hard to argue. Sam Jonas also had good offensive numbers on turns. I mean, he helped move the disc a bunch when the D-line was given a little room to play. So I think his impact there was pretty decent.
Yeah, he had 1 turnover this year. He had 1 turnover this year. He was 142 of 143 on his completions, and he threw for over 700 yards. Yeah, Sam Jonas was just rock solid, everything he needed to be. Next one, Rookie of the Year. There is one runaway candidate with this. I think we can agree it's Jacob Cowan. You knew at the start of the season, now that the season's over, I can reveal this information. I asked Anthony Nunez, who the guy I need to look out for. I do it every year. Like, give me some names, please help me out here. And he said Jacob Cowan. That was the first name out of his mouth. So we knew he'd be good. We knew he'd be trusted. And he started the preseason on the O-line. And you and I talked about it on the show. It felt like he's still a young player, obviously jumping up last season to high regional level club ultimate from Grinnell College in Iowa and kind of making his introduction to top level ultimate, the field felt a little big for him in the first few weeks of the year. And I know it sounds weird to say that a kid who's 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", the field is too big, but it is. It's different timing, and you could see that timing is off, whatever. But by the end of the year, he had to be on that O-line because that O-line, especially against the game prior to Boston, against Philly and against DC, you saw what Cowan could be. So again, I don't let the last game of the season or the first parts of the year make us forget how good Jacob Cowan was. Because when the Empire were good, he was really good. 17 goals, 8 assists, 3 blocks. To me, the rookie of the year is Jacob Cowan.
Yeah, same. Agree. Easy choice. He also, during the down the home stretch, the regular season, I mean, he completed all of his passes in the 4 games that mattered the most. You can't go wrong with that. I mean, he was +5, +5, +3, +1, and just no turns. I mean, what more do you want from a big body running around cutting on offense? Yeah, I mean, is he Jeff Babbitt or John Lithio, some of the big boys you lost in the past? No, absolutely not. But was he a solid fill-in replacement, good player you're excited to have moving forward? Absolutely.
Yeah, I also want to mention, go back to underrated. I think Sam Olsen actually really had a really underrated year. He was out with injury for the last 2 games of the season, but he ended with 7 blocks this year, 3 goals, 4 assists. It doesn't look like a lot, but he also on that D2 line took the toughest physical matchups, game in and game out. And so I think that Sam Olsen, again, he was never really been able to stay healthy consistently in his career. That's what hurt his Empire career, and it came back again this year. But I think Sam Olsen had an underratedly good season, as well. I want to mention that. Okay, our last category is probably the hardest. Breakout player for next season. So looking ahead, and yeah, there are so many names that we could go with. So I would say even give me your podium. Like let's throw out some names and figure this thing out. I have names for you if you want, or I'd love to hear yours too.
Question: Will Ben Dameron be back?
That is our next segment. So no, not Ben Dameron. Sorry, I'm going to exclude Ben Dameron from this segment.
Right.
So yeah, let's do players that we saw.
Yeah, that feels like cheating anyway. So that's fine.
Cheating,
yeah. Breakout player for next year is tough. It's not easy. You know, a guy I played with, I want to see succeed and kind of have more of a role. I think he can kind of do a lot for the team. I would love to see Tristan Yarder get a little more play time, a little more reps. I feel like he's a good offensive player and a good defender. So like,
he was number 1. That was number 1 on my list too.
Oh, well,
there
you go. There you go. Yeah. So
yeah,
it keeps me feel like I'm not super far removed from the team since it was somebody I played with. So
yeah,
that if I had to throw at a dartboard, that might be my choice. Yeah, I mean, if Oliver Fay's available the whole time, I would love to see what he's capable of. I mean, he missed a few games here, so I would.
Yeah, I just don't think Oliver Fay's breaking out. I think he's already broken out. I think we know what he is. I think we're already there. So I think it's almost disqualifying him a little bit from that category. Like same thing with like Axel Gama-Contreras, who I think could probably play a few more O-line points next season if needed to. Like we saw him very, very briefly. He had played 13 total points, but he's another one of those guys that is. You think he's been around a while because he wasn't a rookie on the Empire, but he's still like in his mid-20s. He's still a young player for all intents and purposes. Same thing with Oliver Chartok. But my other breakout players for next season, I think I'm going to go real young on this, where from game to game in college, they can make jumps. Like, so Ethan Lehman and Sam McCrory. Sam McCrory is going to be a freshman next season at UMass, and Ethan Lehman is still going to be a rising junior right now, or he'll be in his junior season next season in college. So those are really, really young players, and those are players where they're so young, we don't know how they're going to improve from week to week and even game to game. Like Ethan Lehman, he was only able to practice for the second half of the year with the Empire, but now that he's got his feet wet, now he has game tape, now he's kind of in the culture, now he can take that back to UMass, figure those things out, become the absolute leader on that team, and then come back. We'll see where he is next summer. Same thing with Sam McCrory. Like that was a high school kid. Sam McCrory was a high school kid. He knocked everybody's socks off in tryouts, and I mean, who knows like where he's going to be. He might be if UMass will likely go to nationals, like Sam McCrory might be the breakout star of college nationals next season as well. I mean, that's almost a year away from now, but again, he's is he 19 now? I mean, he still might be 18. So like when I say breakout in that way, I mean, I think this year's breakout player could have also been the reason I said Matt LeBar. I'll repeat it. Like Matt LeBar went from a career D-line player and then played O-line. And all you need is being in a new situation and it can change everything for you. So, I just want to make mention that Matt LeBar, totally new situation for him. And you saw what he did. And it all looks fine to me for most of the time.
Yeah, I'll echo two of these points. I thought Lehman showed good field sense. He had a nice poach block. Both of his blocks might have been poaches. Excited to see where the future is for him. I think there seems to be some sneaky good talent there. And then I didn't say Matt LeBar for breakout player because, he broke out this year, like you said, but it was only his first season on the O-line and he put up crazy numbers. Is he still getting better? There's a good chance he gets better. I mean, maybe the numbers would be the same, but maybe the eye test, the wow factor as you're watching might be even better. He might be more unguardable. If the numbers are the same, but it makes everything easier for everyone else, that's probably not winning any fake awards we're giving out, but that could have huge ramifications for the team if you have to throw the disc six fewer times every time you're out there on offense because he's dusting somebody or just making everything easier or opening space for his teammates. That's a big deal. That makes a big difference.
Yeah, he had almost 5,000 total yards this year. He was at 48.19 and only Randolph, Jack, Saul, and Calvin. So guys who primarily have the disc in their hands had more yards than him this season on the Empire. Yeah, Matt LeBar was really good. And then outside of that, you mentioned him already, but Ben Simmons to me, when we talk about breakout players, I mean, he could just continue to get better and continue to take on bigger and bigger matchups and be the guy that you trust to put on that, we'll say even D1 and make the move over and take those huge matchups on. Because I think even him, he was scratching the surface. And then the last thing I'm going to mention is Drew Snonagle, because he was the other player when I talked to the coaching staff in preseason, they were really excited about Drew. And Drew getting hurt and breaking his hand or wrist, that hurt their D2 line, but also D1 line. When he was healthy, I want to remind you that in the last few games, he took on Rowan, he took on Dekana, he took on the big matchups. And I think Snonagle is still also a young player. He's still 25 or younger. So he could next season also be healthy and improve and help out the depth, because I think that was something the Empire needed this year too. They looked around and the culture was different, but they just didn't have enough faces by the end of the season that they could trust. Again, and injuries were a huge part of this, right? You're focused on getting Jack back to 100% while trying to bring along other players. But how many young players can you help improve over the course of a season, right? Jacob is a big one. How much effort we're going to have. Jacob's going to figure a few things out. Arthur Kwan is going to figure a few things out. Tristan's going to look comfortable in our system again. Ethan, we got to have him figure a few things out. And you go up and down the line. And then Everest and Max, how do we fit them into our system? And if it's not working, how much do we pivot? And how does that work for them? Players who've been stars. I mean, really stars in the league in other places. And you ask them to be really humble and take on D-line responsibilities. So going to next season, this is my final pivot. There are so many questions. This is probably our last podcast of the season, but we could come back nice and early next season with all the questions I think this season will leave us with. Because I go back to that. I say Max Shepard and Everett Shapiro. How's it going to work out in year two, right? Can they fight themselves onto an O-line? Can they figure some things out there with a longer preseason, knowing they're going to be around if they're going to be around? Ben Dameron, is he going to be around all season? Because that changes a lot for this New York Empire team, having Ben Dameron around. Again, that is probably top 5. If you put a disc to my back, I guess they're not that scary. But anyway, if you put a disc over my head and push my head into the sand, I'm not bringing up some terrible wildwood memories from the past. But if that's what you did, then I might tell you that Ben Dameron is a top 5 talented, most talented player on this team. And then I have huge question marks where Calvin Brown, how is he going to look? How is he going to feel? How is this going to work out for him in his recovery? And is Liam Haverfield, is he back again? Does Liam Haverfield recover from his ACL? And where does he fit as a big arm on potentially those D lines? But again, maybe the O lines again. And then the other thing, obviously for New York, is always the biggest thing. What about any new faces? Who else is coming? New York is still a hotbed for Ultimate. It's still a destination city where people come to work. And until Ultimate becomes a place where you move to a city to just strictly play Ultimate, we have some examples of that around the league. Great. But like, I'm saying like the normal person or the normal average player, a lot of players just coming to New York for work, not or for the experience, not for for the Ultimate, and that kind of comes second. But it's not as simple as looking at the Pony roster and then seeing who will be around and wants to play double the amount of Ultimate, because there are players on Pony who play either for other UFA franchises or who don't want to do both. Chris Kotcher, the best example I think over the last how many years, whatever. So just because they're on the Pony roster does not say that they're going to play the Empire, vice versa. But the point is, like, there are going to be new faces likely as there were this season. But there are so many question marks about Brown and Haverfield and Everest and Shapiro, and Shepard and Ben Dameron, that this team could look very similar next season, and it could also look very different. And to be honest with you, with how young they were this year, maybe the youngest Empire team ever, I don't know what benefits them more, to look entirely new again or to kind of look very similar and try to build on what they did this year. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's a million questions there. It's hard to go. I'll do a micro recruiting push for someone who probably will never listen to this, but Dylan Cook played a point for the Boston Glory, or a game for the Boston Glory in 2024. I played against him at Wildwood this year, and I'll tell you, I got a block on him. I'm very proud of myself, but not the point. That dude looks like a pretty good Frisbee player. So there are players in the New York area that are probably better, as you said, Pony, other places exist just out there that are good and probably better than some of the people on the team. Sorry, team. They're there. You can reload, you can re-up. They're out there. There were some good players, even at Silly Beach Frisbee that I played, that, if I could snap my fingers and put one or two of those dudes on the team, I would have done it. They're there.
Yeah, and I think, again, that'll be the biggest question for the Empire is, again, how they reload. And this idea like the Empire has fallen or whatever. No, like the New York Empire have established themselves as a franchise that people want to play for, people want to go to. And next season, even the stadium change. Like, they were 5-0 in home games this year, but they moved to Memorial Stadium. I am hoping and expecting, and this is where we end this, with a big thank you to the fans again this season for supporting the podcast, supporting the team, supporting everything. Because, yeah, the Empire and the UFA, it's a reminder that I try to do this every year. My girlfriend and I were going through our LinkedIns because, again, that's like a cute thing to do. And she looked at the Empire thing and she goes, "You've been with the Empire for 8 years?" I said, "Yeah, I've been with the Empire for 8 years." And it feels like, yeah, you snap your fingers and it goes quickly, but it's a reminder to me that, and I think you must feel the same, where we began in the UFA to where we are now. I think even you and I, like where we are as a UFA, as a whole Ultimate Frisbee family, right? Because in theory, it still feels like that. The league, we are all in this together to get there. And team by team, yeah, obviously we want to rip each other's throats out to win the championship weekend and all that. But this all still feels like it is growing and it's building. And when I'm at Memorial Stadium, the stadium at Memorial Field in Mount Vernon, the fans who were there, the families, like you could feel there was something building, and that fan culture and the outreach and all those different things. And it's the more eyes on the game, the more butts in the seats, that is still growing. That is something that we're still working through. And even if the players that you mentioned, like the ones you snap your fingers that could be on the team, even if they're not there, if we could get them to support UFA, right, and actually like real pro Ultimate, like you can go around Wildwood and go, "Where are you from?" Oh, the New York area. And you go, "Well, come to Memorial Field, like see this, let's all be one," right, in New York Ultimate. And I think the franchises that have done that, like a Salt Lake, and there's all these million different microcosm reasons why it's more challenging in New York. There's a lot of challenges with transportation and the price of fields. Like, it is a nightmare. Actually, credit to Salt Lake, while also no respect to Salt Lake, but like Salt Lake, they have created Zion Stadium is a great epicenter for Ultimate in that community, and UFA is a lot of their players' top priority. They worry about their club season later than the New York team and New York players who are on, I don't know how many club teams, 8 or 9 different club teams, right? Like they're fighting in different uniforms during the club season, but they come together for the Empire. And the TLDR of that is that I'm at that stadium and I'm like, this is a pro stadium. Like, I know it's a high school football stadium, but like, that's a really good stadium. And that is where you can build something. And that is where you could put butts in those seats. And it's got that video board and locker rooms. And it feels professional. And I just want to say, each year that goes on in the UFA, it feels more professional to me. Like I do other sports for other professional stuff, and that is a high mark to do. And I'm not disparaging any teams or things in the past I've worked for, but like, it. I go into a game and I go, oh, I don't have Wi-Fi or whatever it is, right? Or where's the bathroom? It's a porta potty on the outside of the stadium. Great. And you go, this does not feel professional. But this season for the Empire at the stadium and even Joseph Vicina Field, which is in a great home, like it feels professional and it feels like it continues, the league as a whole continues to get more professional. And in the offseason, that is always going to be the focus. Like Matt Cat Stevens, we talk about him as a coach, but also general manager of the Empire and ownership meetings and all those things. Like, off field stuff, I don't want it to be forgotten that this, for anyone who always says the Empire has fallen, maybe some results have not gone their way, but this Stevens family isn't going anywhere. This still is an ownership group that is going to make sure that they give this franchise the resources it needs to compete for titles. I'm just putting the rest of the league on warning, right? This is a eulogy, but this is a like rising like the phoenix. Like the Empire are going nowhere. I just want to warn everyone in the league. They're going nowhere because the idea is still to win championships, and players and faces might change, but the franchise is still the Empire, and that is a difference from 2018. It is not changing.
No, it's not changing at all. I mean, the season had ups and downs. It was a little rocky at times, but they showed glimpses that this is still playoff caliber team. It's just they kind of got over some injuries only to be faced with a few more. There were some just issues with availability. I mean, you can't fault somebody for being on the World's game team and not being available a few times. That stuff doesn't help. And even if you win,
Oh, well, hey, wait. Actually, wait, maybe you can, because like I told Marquez, I was like, I can take your spot. I was like, you guys are on the road. Like this is a road game for you. I've got nothing going on that weekend. Like I can get there if you want. But he said, no, I'll take it. It's I'll just be on the World Games. That's fine.
yeah. You were probably next in line. That makes sense. I remember when you were telling me about all the tryouts you were going to. I distinctly remember that.
Well, it's funny you say that because we're at that part where no one's listening in the season. I had a tryout for a good open team here in the New York area, and I had a flight to Baltimore from Nashville canceled. So I'm in the Baltimore airport at 3 a.m, and I'm emailing the captain saying I don't think I'm going to hit the closed tryout because I'm trying to rent a car, and no rental cars are being allowed out of Baltimore until 9 a.m. So I had to take an Amtrak that was 2 hours delayed. And then it was a 21-hour return from Nashville to New York City. And I missed the closed tryout. And they said, we would have loved to see you, but we went with other players. And it's okay. I wound up landing on my feet. I'm playing for a pretty good regional mixed team. But the point is, it's tryout season is painful. I will tell you that. The World Games did not break my heart because I didn't go, but yeah, tryout season is hard. Sometimes you're stuck in an airport in Baltimore just trying to get back to a regional level open tryout, and sometimes it doesn't work out for you. That's okay.
In the early days of AUDL, when we were trying to juggle like tryouts and getting places, it was the Wild West sometimes trying to get to and from games kind of on your own without like serious team transport, or you got to get back and then you sleep for 2 hours and then you drive to like deep Brooklyn, and it's like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. We're at that point of the show. We don't want to have any like existential crises about how much we all care about Ultimate too much.
Too much.
I want to
Too
give you the
much.
final word. I want to give you the final word in the 2025 season and give a little bit of optimism for the 2026 season.
Just like my adventure in Wildwood, New Jersey, I came up a little short, and that's all I got. The team came up a little short. There's always next year. There will always be more fried Oreos and corn dogs and a beer garden, maybe at the new stadium. I don't know, but I'm sure there's refreshments. So I will be looking forward to next April and checking out the new stadium and just seeing what the team can put together, because there's always a new hope, fresh faces. Hopefully whoever makes championship weekend from the East loses horribly. And
Right.
that was what I would want out of things. There's still hope. There's still things to be optimistic for.
Listen, for me in the championship weekend, like Atlanta, it's time. You got to get over this. You got to get over the hump.
They feel like a feel-good team. I want to watch them win.
Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to watch them win for a while if it couldn't be New York. So
I think Oakland is absolute chaos. So I think they are a chaos element, and I love having them if they get past Salt Lake. So that'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, next season, maybe, we're almost a year away, but maybe if I do capitulate and go to Wildwood, which I can't imagine I will, but if I do, we will do a live show and we will charge an arm and a leg. Because again, this is a
Well,
professional
I
thing.
cannot say that I will be in any capacity to do a live show at Wildwood. No. Unless that takes place, what hours would work for me? Maybe like from noon to 1, when I would normally have like an ocean break.
Right.
And I would want to be in the ocean. I don't know how well you can like run some waterproof.
Well, there is a Zoom recorder that I will battery up, and maybe we'll bring it out to sea.
Yeah.
And we'll do our first live show. But yeah, we're gonna have to charge. We're gonna have to. Is that allowed? Is that soliciting? I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. We'll figure out like law in New Jersey, and we've got our homework to do in the off season. But for the off season for the Empire, again, we appreciate all the fans, everybody staying with us. Again, we had some fun here on this final show, but yeah, it was an up and down season in terms of wins and losses, but I still think there are so many positive things for the Empire to build on. And I'm looking forward to not only, again, behind the scenes, us building on everything, but also this Empire team coming back better than ever next year. So again, for Pippin and myself, one final time in 2025, we'll see you next year.